News Channel 8 is your local election headquarters, and we bring you all the candidates and politicians who want to represent you. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, the highest-ranking Democrat in the state and the new Commissioner of Agriculture, Nikki Fried. Good morning, Nikki.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming in. So first of all, you're fairly new on the job. How's it going?
So far, so good. We're about 2.5 months into office. We've already been able to do some groundbreaking new announcements of new positions, new policy initiatives. Have already had 3 cabinet meetings. So far, we're carving our path out.
Yeah, one of those positions was the new czar of marijuana, I guess. The official title is
Director of Cannabis.
Director of Cannabis. What is that position going to do? And tell us a little bit about your hire.
Sure. You know, it was kind of funny. It was after one of our first cabinet meetings. We've been in office for a couple of weeks and had a press gaggle afterwards. And everybody's like, "So you've been in office for 2 weeks. Now what?" And so we're going to create a cannabis director, and that made international news. Right. We had about 60 to 70 applications from everywhere, from California to Colorado, Canada. I mean, you name it, people tried to apply for the position. So the way I saw it is that this is an opportunity to really make an impact on things that I've been talking about for years, the expansion of medical marijuana in our state. So the director oversees the parts of our department that look into medical marijuana, which are the edibles and food regulations, to the pesticides, fertilizers. We're creating a advocacy committee that goes around the state getting ideas and suggestions of what's happening out there. And so she's going to be instrumental in kind of pinpointing what things need to be changed in the program. And then the other aspect of the cannabis program is the development of the hemp program here in our state. And so she is coming from Tennessee, where she has extensive background in the hemp industry as well as the banking industry. So she also knows how the cannabis world interacts with banking, or in this case, doesn't. Right. And so helping to get ours kind of moving forward when it comes to financial institutions in our state.
I want to unpack both of those issues. So let's tackle the hemp first. Hemp is a big deal. It's a great replacement for paper products.
Yes.
It's stronger, it's more durable, it's I believe more sustainable. Tell me why hemp is so important to Florida's economy.
It's amazing. I mean, this one plant is able to produce 25 to 35,000 different types of usages. Everything from paper to plastic to styrofoam. People are utilizing it for inside of construction of homes and roads. This is something that's going to be an industrial revolution into our country and into our state. It's going to be replacing your cottons. It's going to be replacing everything that you can possibly think of. Wow. We're going to find a usage for hemp. And you're right, it uses less water, uses less fertilizer. It puts nutrients actually back into the soils. It's all biodegradable. And so this really is an opportunity for our local farmers who have been suffering so much from all the unfair trade practices happening with NAFTA, to all the citrus greening that we've seen devastate our citrus industry, and really an opportunity for them to move forward with how to utilize their land. And then it's a job growth, getting all the manufacturing and processing plants into our state, and really being the golden capital of hemp for not only our state and our country, but more importantly for exports as well.
And it's not weed. I mean, there's no chemical properties that can get you high. Where does it sit legally now, and what needs to change?
So in the federal farm bill that passed in 2018, what it did was it reclassified industrial hemp and took it off of a Schedule 1. And so what they've also said in the hemp bill is that every state, through either Department of Agriculture and or the legislature, has the authorization to create a hemp program. If they so choose not to, they can opt into the federal program that they're going to be developing. So here in our state, there's still a conflict with the laws, because in our state it says any derivative of the cannabis plant, right, which we considered hemp, must be still sold through one of our licensed marijuana treatment centers. So that needs to be changed. We need to make sure that we decouple hemp from the medical marijuana program, and so that our farmers and our entrepreneurs here in our state have an opportunity to move forward with this.
Are you working with that with the legislature?
Absolutely. We have legislation that's working through the House as well as the Senate, working with some great leadership on both sides, working forward to passing some legislation. Okay,
yeah, it's important for viewers to know. They have nothing to do with each other than they come from the same plant.
Correct.
But this is obviously an industrial product that will help in many of the ways that you mentioned. The other thing you talked about was the financial side of marijuana businesses. right now, because marijuana is a Schedule I drug, which we can unpack that in a moment, it's certainly not on the level of cocaine and heroin, so that seems like that needs to change.
Yes.
But right now it is a Schedule I drug, which means that a lot of these marijuana businesses can't deposit their money into banks. They can't take credit cards. A lot of them are having to take cash, which means they're storing cash in their businesses. That's very dangerous.
Yes.
That can lead to armed robberies, and we know where those go. How do we fix that? What can you do on the state level?
Well, there are a couple things, and I know this personally. During the campaign, 2 of my bank accounts were shut down because of my support for the expansion of medical marijuana, and because I was taking some campaign donations from the marijuana industry. And so I have personal experience with this. And you're right, it's not even just that the companies taking in cash, it's they can't pay their employees. They can't pay the landlords. They can't pay any the people who are coming for cleaning services. Even their CEOs and the people that are making money in the industry can't get mortgages because no bank is going to give them a mortgage. So this is a real issue that needs to be fixed. So in the state level, we do have 2 state banks that are already banking in the industry. We have a new director of financial regulations, Ronald Rubin, and one of the things that I've asked him when I was doing the interviews is, where are you on medical marijuana banking? And made sure that whoever we appointed for that position was on the right side of history and saying that they are going to move forward with anything that they can do to decrease regulations and to work with these companies and these banks that want to get into the industry. So that's one thing that we're doing on a state level, is trying to figure out how we can loosen some of the state regulations for the state chartered banks. We also spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., both with the Treasury, with FDIC, with Congress, trying to get them to pass legislation and trying to change some of the financial regulations on a national level.
And that's something you're going to be doing later this week.
Yes, I will be going up to Washington, D.C. on Sunday and spending a few days up in D.C. Walking the halls and talking to as many Congress members. There is some legislation that is up on one of the committees on Wednesday afternoon, and so this is something that we've been working on for about 1.5 to 2 years on trying to get some progress in Congress.
Oh, great. We saw this week Governor Ron DeSantis signed SB 182 into law.
Yes.
That has now made smokable medical marijuana legal. We've already seen some patients taking advantage. There was a True Leave in Tallahassee that sold to about a dozen people. Certainly that's going to expand. Nikki, you said when the House finally passed its bill, I believe the quote was, "It's about damn time."
Yes.
You are a former marijuana lobbyist, so your position on this is clear. But for those at home who are hesitant about this, why is this important for medical marijuana patients?
You know, so many patients have different delivery mechanisms that they need. Some patients can't digest food, can't digest something, need the immediate relief, and also have immune systems which are completely compromised at this time, whether they're going through cancer treatments. And so getting the rawest plant possible with none additional chemicals, having nothing else put into, when they take it down into an oil and put it into a vaporizer, there's other things that get added into it. And making sure that a patient who has such a deficient immune system at this time, giving them that type of access and that type of delivery mechanism is a lifesaver to so many patients. I know my mom is, unfortunately going through cancer at this time.
I'm so sorry.
And so seeing what she's had to go through to try all these different products to get her relief, and knowing that possibly just being able to smoke it, the pure flower might have been an option for her, is something that we have to fight for.
Yeah, well, I'm so sorry to hear that. Wish her the best, obviously. Many people are afraid, including the current Florida Speaker of the House, Jose Oliva, that this move is barreling us towards recreational marijuana legalization. Where do you stand on that?
I see no comparison whatsoever. I think that everybody understands this is a medical product, but I also have been very supportive that, I think that at some point, we have 33 states that have some type of legalization or some type of medical marijuana program, that this is a matter of time. And a lot of it is, one, that we can start taxing the products once it becomes legalized as a full adult use. It also is an opportunity to change our criminal justice system, that so many people that we are still putting into the jail system because of simple possession charges, that needs to be altered. So this is making sure that patients have access. So it's 2 separate conversations. Giving patients access to the medicine that they need is different than changing the way that we view adult use on cannabis.
Certainly 2 separate issues, but on the latter issue on legalization, The impacts on the drug trade are also huge. Cartels in Mexico, it's their biggest product. Could lessen crime as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I talk about as well, is not just access to medical marijuana, but affordable access. Because until which time that we actually are reducing the cost of any of these products to the patients, it's still easier for a patient to go to their neighbor down the street and get it off the black market than it is getting their medical marijuana card, which costs money, going to the doctor, which costs money, and then the exorbitant costs from still the license holders. And it's not their fault. It's just the fact is that the huge overhead and the regulations are preventing them from being able to reduce their costs.
The process to get a marijuana card, to be able to smoke marijuana, or even to get it just before the smokable marijuana came into effect, notoriously cumbersome since this has passed. Can you give us an idea of where that stands now, how long the wait is for people who are trying to get one, and where you hope to get it to?
Yeah, sure. So when a patient has to go into a doctor, and that's one of the problems, is that not your general practitioner, your specialist are not on the program, are not on the registry. So you have to doctor shop and find the doctor who is going to be willing to see you for your condition and get you onto the registry.
And it's expensive.
It is expensive. We've seen everything from $200 to $400 that doctors are charging them. And
with multiple times a year they have to go back, right?
So they're supposed to only have to go back once every 270 days. Some doctors are having their patients come back once a month. And so again, those are additional costs onto the patient. And I believe that that's complete fraud on the patient, that they're making them come back once a month and having an in-person visit. Then once they get there on the registry, it takes them, we were experiencing months delays from the Department of Health and getting patient cards. Now we're seeing it's about a week and a half, so it's a lot less. And then once they receive their card and authorization from the Department of Health, they then go into one of the dispensaries, hopefully into their communities. And then at that point, the products, every dispensary and every one of them, it has a little bit different product lines, different formulations, different delivery mechanisms, and you go in and you got to go find what works best for you.
Marijuana obviously has a lot of palliative properties. It's being used to help PTSD. It's certainly a number of other issues. Cancer patients, certainly like your mother, help people get off of opioid addiction. But it is very potent these days. I mean, this isn't the kind of marijuana that it used to be, right? I mean, it's being bred specifically for increases in THC, and it is pretty powerful. A lot of the recent research shows that it's very detrimental to the developing brain, particularly people who are kids and teenagers. Even doctors say sometimes maybe up until 25 years of age. Now that there's going to be much more of it around because of medical marijuana, and as you said, and I think you're right, that we're sort of moving towards recreational, whether on the federal level or on the state level, how do we keep it out of the hands of children and teenagers? Do we need maybe to raise the age limit to 21? Some people have mentioned that. Or do we need more public campaigns to make sure people are informed about how this could be dangerous in the wrong hands?
Yeah, so a lot of it is education. A lot of it is the doctor-patient relationship, that if a doctor is putting somebody onto the registry, it's, again, if they were a minor, it should be for very specific reasons why that they're getting onto the registry, and making sure that there's communication with their parents. And then it's also up to the dispensary to make sure that they are knowing, that if we have a certain age limits and an age frame for somebody to be in there, that's the same thing like a liquor store, that, you shouldn't be selling liquor to a minor. And so the obligation is up to the liquor store to do their job and to follow the law. And I would say the same onus will be on the stores that are selling the marijuana, is to make sure that they too are following the law. So it's going to be a combination of parenting from the doctors, and then also from the people who are actually dispensing it.
There was some flap a couple of months ago about the fact that you were a Democrat that was getting elected to statewide office, and I don't think the NRA was happy about the fact, said so, that they weren't happy about the fact that you were going to be in charge of the licenses for concealed weapons permits. Where does that stand right now? I know there was an effort to possibly take it and put it under the Commissioner of Finance, I believe, right?
Yep. So what I've said from day one, very strongly, is that once I got elected, that the NRA would not have influence in my office, and so I can proudly say that they don't. But it is my responsibility to do my job. And that means conducting full background checks for everybody who applies for concealed weapons permit, and do it within a timely manner, which is under 90 days. So there, of course, there was a scuttle when I first got into office of moving it outside of the department into whether it was the FDLE or whether into the chief financial officer. And so I've always said, this is not a power grab. This is not about me versus the Republicans or me versus the NRA. This is about getting it right. And if it means that after we've done the internal investigation and getting all of the internal reports, whether or not that stays inside the Department of Agriculture or gets moved somewhere else, we got to be responsible. We got to make the right decisions. Right. And so from day one, we came in, we did a thorough review of the entire program. We have new leadership. We have a new division director, a new division deputy chief. And so we've gone in there, and when we first came in, the numbers and the time frame for reviewing them was on the verge of the 90 days. And so we got in there, had new leadership, have new protocols in place, and we're actually reporting under 58 days for reviews. And so we actually are asking the legislature that we need 77 new employees. Some of them that we've seen are part-time employees, and I think it is absolutely irresponsible for part-time employees to be reviewing these background checks. So we've asked the legislature to appropriate money so that we can make those full-time. Then there's another 34 employees that are making $24,000 a year to review these backgrounds. And so again, that's irresponsible on our part. So I'm hopeful that the legislature is going to come back and realize that this is a public safety issue, and then once we get these employees in place, we'll be able to maintain our 58 days and even less than that, and make sure we're doing it in a timely manner. So we are doing our job and making sure that citizens of our state are safe.
It doesn't seem to make much sense that it would be under finance, but under FDLE does seem like it might make more sense than agriculture. What are your feelings about that eventually? Well,
I think that we have looked into all of the moving parts and have felt that staying in the Department of Agriculture makes the most sense. You have a constitutional officer who's overseeing the job, and so we are making sure that it's done right inside of our office. Even if it was to be moved, it wouldn't have been moved for years, and so we have to make sure that we go through all the protocols and have that safety measures in place. But we are pretty confident that it needs to stay within the Department of Agriculture.
You were the only statewide elected Democrat in office, and the only one for quite some years now, maybe a dozen, 10, 12 years?
Yes.
Are you the de facto head of the state Democratic Party?
I take my statewide election very seriously, and I look to build upon some of the progress that the Democrats have had in the last election cycle. We have 2 new women in Congress that we got elected. We have more senators, more House members that were elected. So I look at my job as building on the successes of the party and how we can come together and see what has gone right, what has gone wrong, what is our mission. Who are we as a Democrat in the state of Florida? And so I take that very seriously. I work very hard to make sure that I'm accessible to the party and accessible to the leaders in our party, and so we can have those intellectual conversations of what next. And so I look at, I don't know if I'd necessarily be quote unquote the de facto, but I do see myself as leading those conversations and having a very active role as we move forward.
Future aspirations for Nikki Fried?
My future aspirations is to get my job done right. I have always said that I am so honored and so humbled and blessed to be given this opportunity. Going through 3 recounts and only winning by 6,753 votes, so no one's counting.
You got that right down, huh?
So if anybody wants to know my 4-digit codes ever.
Right.
And so I'm just so humbled by this experience and being able to every single day get to wake up and say, how do I make a difference? How do I make sure that what I've been given doesn't go for granted? And so if I do my job and I make sure that the citizens of our state understand the full breadth of the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, then the path that will be in front of me will be laid out. But my job is to do my job and to do it well.
For someone in the private sector, that was a very political answer. You're learning very quickly. Nikki Fried, the Commissioner of Agriculture in Florida, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Really appreciate you being here. We'll be right back.